Well, hello. Welcome into my favorite time of year, pre-release. Sometimes it's 2, 3, maybe even 4 now times a year. I get to talk to you about new sets, and that's always the time when my channel is the most spicy. It's the new set openings. A lot of people come here for a little bit of advice with what to do with the new sets. And each time I do a bit of a pre-release meme, a little goof, a little gaff, a little guide. And this time, instead of putting together a really long, exceedingly boring PowerPoint presentation, I thought, why not stare at my beautiful face for 5 or 10 minutes, and we'll examine the 3 major areas of pre-release prep in little nuggets. So I think discussing the removal and counters and tempo is important to do. I think discussing the mechanics, and then I think in general a pre-release guide is important. Anybody can open 3 on-color rares or mythics and play them. I can't help you any more than that. Just open well. That's pre-release. You want to open really well. You find good cards, and everybody's happy. What I want to start out with is the mechanics. I think in this particular pre-release, you've only got a couple to worry about, and only a couple of them are new. And I want to rank them from worst to first, in my opinion. So I'm going to start off with Eternalize. Now, Eternalize is a cool mechanic. It is long-term value. And I think that's really important with sealed, especially because you can get in these long-term knockdown, drag out battles where getting extra value out of your creatures can be the difference between winning and losing. This is the same advantage that you got with something like Embalm. To be specific, let's look at one card, Steadfast Sentinel. It's a 2/3 with Vigilance for 4. Not that great. We have a 3/2 with Vigilance for 3 right now that I think I would rather play, and that has Embalm as well. Now this has Eternalize, which is a little different than Embalm. So for 6 mana, rather, you can Eternalize it, and it comes back as a 4/4 Black Zombie Human Cleric. Now there are advantages to it being a token. With some of the other blue-white, like that blue-white Vigilance bird that gives tokens flying. If there's any other mechanics that affect only tokens, that's good. Zombies, this card in like a black-white zombie deck, when it comes back, you can play the Ketra spell, so it gets +2/+1 instead of +1/+1. Yes, there is value. But in my opinion, something like Embalm, just like Eternalize, really require the enablers. They require them more. And I know you can argue, yes, it can be good, and long-term value is good, and people who play Magic the Gathering love to live in a world of absolutes. But yes, any mechanic can be good at any time, but the important takeaway with mechanics is, the more synergy, mechanics equal synergy in a deck. If you have, for example, let's look at the -1/-1 counters. Having the Crocodile is great. Having 2 of them, also great. Having the Beetle that removes counters along with a couple Crocodiles, that's even better. Having an Archfiend of Ifnur makes that deck bananas, or a Hapatra also makes that deck very good. And with Eternalize and Embalm, you need like the Temet, or you need that bird to make these anything more than just vanilla creatures. So that's why I would rank it near the bottom. But again, with draft in particular, you could really stack up the value by getting a lot of creatures with a particular mechanic. Next, we have Exert. Now, this isn't exactly a new mechanic, but they did take a little different, a little spicier meme. They made it a little spicier meme. They made it a little more interesting. Now, if you're not familiar with it, let's take the 4/3 Minotaur that when you exert it, it becomes a 5/4 with Menace. Now, when something is exerted, it doesn't untap the next untap phase. In Hour of Devastation, they take exert a little bit further, and apply it in activated abilities. So now you have, like, for example, a 2-mana dork that if you exert it, taps for 2. So you could maybe play the 2-mana dork on turn 2. Then on turn 3, you exert it, and you play a land, you exert it, you're tapping for 5 instead of 4 on turn 3. That'd be very, very powerful. That's why I think if you get that particular one, it's very powerful. Oasis Ritualist. And then there's the kind of the standard exert where, for example, Kenra Scrappers, a 3-mana 2/3, was actually okay in this format. When you exert it, it gets +2/+0, and it also has Menace. So you exert it, it's a 4/3 with Menace. Very good. You play that 3-drop into the Minotaur 4-drop. You're pretty good. Now, on face value alone, I think, in my opinion, exert is similar to Embalm, and why am I forgetting the name? Eternalize. But what I think makes exert better is there's a lot of spells in this format that untap your creatures. Darju's Resolve, you've got the green something strike or whatever. You've got spells and abilities that can untap creatures. So that means, in essence, you can have your cake and eat it too. You can exert something and get the value, untap it, redo it. You could also, say, play a trial, one that gives them +2/+1 and gives them vigilance. Any spell that gives your creatures vigilance means you get to exert them without any negative blowback. So it's for this reason. For the common level, at the common, like Darju's Resolve in a draft, you can draft that no problem. The strike, Synchronized Strike, probably not. Maybe. You might not even be in green. But nonetheless, there's plenty of ways to untap your creatures or give them vigilance. And that means you get to double dip on exert. And that's why I think exert edges out the token abilities. And now let's get to what I think is probably the best mechanic of the set. And that is Afflict. Let's take a very vanilla 2/2 creature, Kenra Eternal. It's a 2-mana bear. Nothing special. But it has Afflict 1, which means anytime that creature is blocked, it deals 1 damage to opponent. Now, a 2-mana 2/2 is probably just going to trade off early. Maybe you'll get that 1 extra damage. But where I see Afflict really being spicy is, 1, you still get through and get some damage in on them if they're blocking with tokens late game. So that's good. It basically gives a 2/2 trample against a 1/1 token, chump blocker. Then, if you have something that Afflict 2 or even Afflict 3, you're talking a whole different ball game. You know, do you take the damage? Do you block it? I don't know. Then you can force your opponent into bad blocks, right? When you have a trick, you have them on the clock, it's an aggressive mechanic, and you know they have to block it, or they don't have to block, or they don't want to block it, then you can hit them with a spell. It really sets up combat tricks extraordinarily well. I think if you're going to play limited, like red-black Afflict, you thought red-white was fast in this draft format. I mean, if you have Afflict going, it could get really, really, really fast and really ugly. Especially you have 4 or 5 creatures with Afflict. You stack your deck with a bunch of combat tricks. You're getting through even when they're trading. You're winning trades. You're playing something like Brute Strength, giving an Afflict creature +3/+1 in trample. So you're winning a trade. Plus you're dealing that extra damage because of Afflict trigger. Plus you're dealing extra damage because of trample damage. The Afflict mechanic is very powerful. And I think in a board stall scenario, let's say there's no good blocks on the board, but your opponent's down to 2 or 3 life, and you have an Afflict creature, you can just attack in. Even if it loses the trade, you win the game. So it's a very versatile mechanic, and maybe I'm just going to be dead wrong on how powerful I think it is. Again, for pre-release, if you're not drafting, you know, you just play the cards you get. You play the cards that you open and you hope for the best. In draft, definitely drafting this mechanic seems really strong if you're in an aggressive deck, but there is a lot of removal in this set. So I don't know. I think it all remains to be seen. That's how I rank them. But what I'm curious, more curious about, since I'm no Magic Pro, is how you rank the mechanics of Hour of Devastation. I'd love to hear in the comment section down below. Thanks for watching this video. We'll talk to you again real soon.